Okay, so folktales and fables are traditionally pretty short. Okay, so each of these I've actually been able to fit into one slide. So bear with me here. Here we go. Remember, we're reading and we're looking for the moral or the proverb of the story. Okay, so here's the shepherd boy and the wolf. This is a folk tale. You've probably heard this story as the boy who cried wolf. One day, a boy was watching the sheep at the edge of the village. He thought it would be fun to shout, "Wolf! Wolf!" to see what would happen. Even though there was no wolf, each time he shouted, people came running, as he supposed they would. The boy thought this was so much fun that he tried the trick again several days later. But the people who were fooled before were angry. They told the rest of the villagers about the trick. Everyone decided never to go running again if that lad called wolf. But after several more days, a real wolf came towards the flock of sheep. The lad shouted, "Wolf! Wolf! Wolf!" loud and long. Nobody came to help, and the wolf carried off one of the sheep. That's a more pleasant version. In some versions, the wolf killed the little boy. Again, these were not always the most PC stories. So, how do we find the moral of the story? Moral of the story. What did our character do? He lies and he cries wolf when there is none. What happens? Well, when there was a wolf, ultimately, no one came to help him. So what's the moral of the proverb that we should take? So we see the little boy. We see that he lied and played tricks on people, that people got mad at him. And then when there was a serious incident, no one believed him. So the moral and the proverb that we should get out of this is that you should tell the truth. Don't go around lying. So don't lie so that people will believe you. If you build a reputation about yourself and you're known as a liar, then people won't trust you as much and it could bite you in the butt really bad. Okay, so that was the boy who cried wolf. Next. The mice have a meeting, a folktale. Once upon a time, there was a number of mice had a meeting. They wanted to decide the best way to be safe from the cat. The cat was their enemy. It had killed many of their relatives and friends. Many ways of keeping track of the cat were suggested by different mice, but none of them were thought to be, by the other mice, to be good ways. Okay. At last, one of the smallest and youngest mice offered a plan. It was to hang a bell around the cat's neck. Good, good, all the mice shouted. We can hear when she comes. We can run away before she catches one of us. Then one old mouse began to think as she stroked her whiskers. Slowly, she asked, "Who is going to put the bell on the cat?" Okay, so there's supposed to be a lesson in here somewhere. Where are we finding it? So who's our characters? We have the mice, and they're trying to create a plan to protect themselves from the cat. One of them has a great idea to put a bell on the cat. That's what we do nowadays, is we put a bell on the cat so we know where they are. But nobody wants to do it. So what are our characters doing? They're meeting to discuss a plan so the cat will stop killing the mice. What happens? Someone suggests to put a bell on the cat, and everybody agrees that this is a great idea, but nobody acts. So one of the proverbs that you could get out of this is that it's easier said than done. It's really easy to come up with a plan or to think of a plan, but then actually doing it is a different story. Someone could also say that you have a better chance of coming up with an idea if you're working in a group. So more heads are better than one. That could be a moral or a proverb that you could get out of this as well. That's why I left a little bullet, because that's not the only story. That's not the only lesson that this little story could tell. All right, our last one. This is the milkmaid and her pail. And this is another fable by Aesop. Aesop is a guy who just is very famous for writing a lot of the fables that we have today. Okay. A milkmaid had been out to milk the cows and was returning from the field with the shining milk pail balanced nicely on her head. As she walked along, her pretty head was busy with plans for the days to come. This good, rich milk, she mused, will give me plenty of cream to churn. The butter I make, I will take it to market, and with the money I get for it, I will buy a lot of eggs for hatching. How nice will it be when they're all hatched and the yard is full of fine young chicks? When May Day comes, I will sell them, and with the money, I'll buy a lovely new dress to wear to the fair. All the young men will look at me, and they'll come and try to make love to me. That means woo, to flirt with me. But I shall very quickly send them about their business. Ugh, with a scoff, because when you do a little flirty head turn. And she thought of how she would settle that matter. She tossed her head scornfully, and down fell the pail of milk to the ground. And all the milk flowed out, and with it vanished butter and eggs and chicks and new dress and all the milkmaid's pride. Okay, let's recap. So our character is a milkmaid. What's she doing? She's dreaming about how, she's an entrepreneur, okay? She's thinking, I'm going to take this milk, I'm going to turn it into butter, I'm going to sell the butter, I'm going to buy eggs, I'm going to hatch the eggs, and I'm going to sell the chickens, and I'll buy a dress, and then the boys will want to flirt with me at the fair. But what ultimately happens is she's so in her daydream that she's like, oh, boys, leave me alone. And when she moves her head, the pail drops. So now she doesn't have any milk. Now she won't have any butter. Bye-bye dress. Bye-bye flirting with boys. So one of the moral and proverbs that comes from this, actually from this story, is a saying you might have heard before. And it's, don't count your chickens before they hatch. And that means it's really good to have goals and it's great to have plans, but you need to be present in the moment still and do your step-by-step steps. So she was getting a little ahead of herself. She was already imagining that she was at the fair, tossing her head. Oh boy, stop it. And there went all her dreams. Spilled right on the ground. So that's a possible don't count your chickens before they hatch. It could also be save your daydreams for, a time when you're not working. I don't know, something like that. So what are we doing now? Take the 7.9 checkpoint. So the questions are going to ask you about the stories, these 3 stories. They're going to ask you who are the characters, what happens in the plot, and what's the moral of the story. So you're going to see the story get presented before the question. You don't have to super carefully read it every single time. You can skim it as needed. That's a great tool now that we've already read each of the sections. So what are we doing? Lesson time is over. Go take the 7.9 checkpoint. See how you do. If you don't love your score, take it again. If you are not getting at least a 7 out of 10 on this, you need to take it again to help your grade out, okay?